On a quiet night, when the moonlight bathed the world in its soft glow, a small smile had vanished. This smile belonged to a young girl named Aisha, who had always seen the world with a sense of wonder. Her life was simple but full of joy, a small house by the lake, with its windows open to the breeze, and the faint scent of jasmine that filled the air every evening. She lived with her mother, who was the kindest soul, and her father, a hard-working man who always tried to make the best of life. But on this particular night, something was different. The moon was especially bright, casting long shadows across the landscape, and there was an unusual stillness in the air. Aisha sat by the window, watching the world outside, but her heart felt heavier than usual. Her little smile, the one that had been a part of her every day, seemed to have disappeared. She tried to recall the last time she smiled, but it felt like it was lost, hidden behind something she couldn't understand. Aisha had always been a dreamer, often imagining stories of magical creatures, distant lands, and grand adventures. But lately, something had changed. The joy that once seemed endless had become elusive, slipping through her fingers like the moonlight that danced on the surface of the lake. Her days were filled with quiet routines, but the spark was missing. She tried to speak to her mother about it, but each time, the words would get stuck in her throat. How could she explain that she felt like she was losing herself, piece by piece, every day? That smile she used to wear so easily was fading, and no one seemed to notice. Her mother, busy with the household chores, her father always working late at the factory, no one had the time to see the quiet sadness in her eyes. One evening, as Aisha sat outside, gazing up at the stars, a soft voice interrupted her thoughts. It was her mother, coming to sit beside her. "Aisha, why are you so quiet these days? You haven't been laughing like you used to. What's on your mind, my dear?" Her voice was gentle, like the breeze that rustled through the trees. Aisha didn't know how to answer. How could she tell her mother that the simple joy of life was slipping away from her? Instead, she simply shook her head, giving her a weak smile, the kind that didn't reach her eyes. "It's nothing, Mama. I'm just thinking." But her mother, who knew her better than anyone, could see right through the lie. She reached out and gently stroked her daughter's hair. "If something is troubling you, we can talk about it. You don't have to carry it alone." But Aisha didn't know how to explain the emptiness she felt. She had been carrying it for weeks now, and every night as the moonlight flooded the room, it felt heavier. That smile she had always given so freely to others, the one that made her feel alive and happy, had faded away into the shadows. The silence between them grew, and though her mother's words were comforting, they couldn't reach her. Aisha felt like a puzzle, with pieces missing, and she couldn't find the ones that would make her whole again. As the days passed, she tried to focus on the things that once made her happy, playing by the lake, listening to the songs of birds in the morning, and watching the stars at night. But everything felt distant, like a dream she couldn't quite grasp. The nights grew colder, and the moonlight, once so comforting, now felt too bright, too intense. It reminded her of the things she couldn't find, the happiness she once had, the smile that used to come so easily. Each night, as the moon rose high in the sky, she would stand by the window, watching the world below, feeling like an outsider in her own life. One evening, as she was walking by the lake, lost in thought, something unexpected happened. A light breeze swept through the trees, carrying with it the scent of jasmine. Aisha paused, taking a deep breath. For the first time in weeks, she felt a flutter of something inside her, a tiny spark of joy. It was as if the breeze had brought with it a whisper of something familiar, something she had almost forgotten. The smile, the one that had been missing for so long, began to return, just a little at first. She smiled softly to herself, the first real smile in what felt like forever. It wasn't the same carefree grin she had once worn, but it was a start, a small step toward finding herself again. Aisha stood there, looking out at the lake, the moon reflecting on its surface like 1,000 tiny stars. She realized then that it wasn't about finding the smile she had lost. It was about rediscovering the things that made her who she was. She didn't need to have everything figured out right away. It was enough to know that, even in the stillness of the night, even in the moments when everything seemed uncertain, there was still beauty, still hope. And that, in itself, was worth smiling about. As she walked back to the house, the smile lingered on her lips, a quiet promise to herself that she would find her way back, piece by piece. She didn't need to rush. She just needed to remember that the world was full of small wonders, moments of peace, and the quiet beauty of the moonlight that bathed her world every night. It was in these moments that the smile would return, slowly but surely, until one day, it would be the smile she remembered, bright, free, and full of joy. And so, as the night wore on, and the stars twinkled above, Aisha lay down to sleep, her heart a little lighter than before. She knew that the smile she had lost would find its way back to her. It wasn't gone forever. It was simply waiting, hidden in the quiet corners of her heart, ready to return when the time was right. In the meantime, she would find peace in the stillness, and trust that with each passing night, the world would give her just what she needed to heal. And when the sun rose again, she would be ready to smile once more. Every night, a little cat named Mia would drift into a peaceful slumber under the warm glow of the moon. Her fur, soft as velvet, shimmered under the moonlight as she curled up on her favorite blanket near the window. The world outside was calm, and the night carried the sound of the wind whispering through the trees, almost as if the stars themselves were singing a lullaby for the creatures of the earth. But Mia, as innocent and playful as she was, had a secret. Every night, as she slept, she dreamed of a magical land far beyond the boundaries of her home. In her dreams, Mia was not just a regular house cat. She was the queen of a magnificent kingdom, where flowers bloomed in every shade of color imaginable, and the air was filled with the sweet scent of jasmine. The skies in her dreams were painted with the brightest shades of pink and orange, and the clouds danced in shapes of all kinds. Mia would run through the lush green meadows, her paws barely touching the ground, feeling the wind whisk her away to new adventures. She would chase butterflies that sparkled like diamonds and leap from one cloud to another as if they were soft cushions made just for her. The dream world was her playground, and she was free. But there was one thing that puzzled Mia each time she visited her dream world. She never saw anyone else there. The kingdom was always empty. The flowers swayed in the breeze, but no one was around to admire their beauty. The butterflies fluttered but had no one to chase them. Mia often wondered who else lived in the kingdom, or if she was the only one there. Her dream felt so real, yet it was lonely in a way that made her heart ache just a little. One night, as Mia curled up on her blanket and drifted into slumber, something different happened. This time, her dream was more vivid than ever before. As she ran through the fields, the soft rustling of the leaves suddenly stopped. Mia looked around, and there, standing in the distance, was a figure, a cat, but unlike any she had ever seen before. This cat was tall and graceful, its coat a mixture of midnight black and shimmering silver, making it look like it had been bathed in the stars themselves. The mysterious cat's eyes glowed with a golden light, like twin orbs of the sun rising in the sky. Mia felt a rush of excitement mixed with a hint of nervousness as she approached the stranger. The other cat turned its head and smiled, a warm, welcoming smile that made Mia's heart flutter. "I've been waiting for you," the cat said in a soft, melodic voice that echoed in the air like the sound of a gentle river flowing. "I knew you would come. You are the one destined to bring life back to this place." Mia blinked in surprise. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "What is this place? Why is it empty?" The mysterious cat's eyes twinkled as it spoke again. "This is a land of dreams, a place where imagination and wishes take shape. But for a long time, this kingdom has been forgotten. It has waited for someone with a pure heart, someone who believes in magic and in the power of dreams, to bring it to life once more. And that someone is you, Mia." Mia felt a warmth fill her chest, and for the first time in her dreams, she no longer felt alone. "But how can I bring this place to life?" she asked, unsure of what she was being asked to do. The mysterious cat took a step closer and gently placed its paw on Mia's shoulder. "By dreaming, by believing. Your dreams are powerful, Mia. They can reshape this world. As long as you hold on to your belief in magic, this place will thrive once again. You are the key to unlocking the wonders of this land." Mia's heart swelled with pride and excitement. She had always known there was something special about her dreams, but she never imagined they could change a world. "I will do it," she declared. "I will bring this kingdom back to life." From that moment on, every time Mia slept, her dreams became more colorful and vibrant. The flowers bloomed in bright hues, the trees grew tall and strong, and the skies filled with magnificent birds that soared freely through the air. The mysterious cat, whom Mia had come to know as Luna, was always by her side, guiding her through the dream world and showing her how to shape it with her imagination. Mia learned that her dreams had power beyond anything she had ever known. She could create mountains out of clouds, summon rainbows from the sun, and paint the night sky with stars. The more she dreamed, the more the kingdom flourished, until one night, as she stepped into the meadows of her dreams, she found that the land was no longer empty. Other animals, birds, and creatures had appeared, each brought to life by Mia's belief and imagination. The kingdom was full of life, joy, and laughter, and Mia was no longer alone. In the days that followed, Mia realized something important. Her dreams were not just a way for her to escape. They were a way for her to create, to inspire, and to share her heart with the world. Every night, as she drifted off to sleep, she felt the magic of her dreams envelop her, knowing that in the world of dreams, anything was possible. And no matter where she was or how far away her kingdom seemed, Mia would always have the power to bring it to life with just a thought, a wish, and the strength of her belief. And so, every night, Mia closed her eyes, and as she drifted into sleep, she knew that the world of dreams was waiting for her to shape it, to color it, and to make it as beautiful as her heart could imagine. And the best part was, she was never alone. It was a quiet evening, the sky a deep shade of gray, clouds swirling like the remnants of forgotten stories. As the first raindrops began to fall, they gently tapped against the windows, creating a rhythm that seemed to echo in the heart. For some, the rain was a soothing lullaby. For others, it carried a sense of nostalgia. For Arya, it was the sound of a memory long hidden away, one that had been sealed within the folds of her mind for years. She sat by the window, her gaze lost in the dance of raindrops as they slid down the glass, one merging with the other, creating streams that disappeared into nothingness. There was something magical about this moment, as if the rain was trying to unlock the door to a forgotten chapter of her life. The sound of the rain brought her back to the old house on the hill, the one she used to visit when she was little. Her grandmother's house, a place where stories were born with the setting sun and the warmth of the fireplace. Arya had spent countless afternoons there, curled up beside her grandmother, listening to the tales that seemed to come alive in the crackling of the fire. Those stories, though simple, were filled with magic, wisdom, and a sense of adventure. They were the kind of stories that stayed with you long after the telling, wrapping around your heart like a blanket. One evening, during a particularly heavy storm, her grandmother had told her a story unlike any other. It was a story that Arya would carry with her forever, a tale of love and loss, of hope and resilience, set against the backdrop of an endless monsoon. Her grandmother had begun with a smile, her old eyes sparkling with the kind of mischief only age could bring. There was once a village, much like ours, nestled at the foot of the mountains, she said, her voice soft but clear. And in that village there lived a man named Ayan. He was a poet, his words like magic that could turn the simplest of things into something extraordinary. He would write verses about the rain, about the rivers, about the trees that lined the village paths. But there was one thing Ayan loved more than his poetry, the rain itself. Arya had listened intently, her young mind enchanted by the way her grandmother wove the tale. Ayan believed that the rain was a gift from the heavens, a sign that the world was alive with possibility. Every monsoon, when the clouds gathered above, he would go out into the fields, letting the rain soak his clothes and his hair, as if he was becoming one with the storm. He would stand there, arms outstretched, his face lifted to the sky, and he would recite his poems to the heavens. Her grandmother paused, the rain outside seeming to echo the words she had just spoken. One day, during the fiercest storm the village had ever seen, Ayan met a woman. Her name was Layla, and she had come to the village from far away. She was unlike anyone Ayan had ever seen. Her eyes were deep and mysterious, like the night sky, and her voice was as soft as the falling rain. She was drawn to Ayan, just as he was drawn to her, for she too had a love for the rain. But there was a sadness in her eyes, a longing for something lost, something she could never find again. Arya's heart fluttered, and she leaned in closer. Her grandmother smiled knowingly. They became inseparable, bound by their shared love for the rain and the beauty they saw in the world. But there was something Layla had never told Ayan. She was not of this world. She was a spirit of the rain, a being born from the clouds, destined to return to the heavens once the storm passed. Ayan, however, was unaware of this. He only knew that he had found his soulmate, someone who understood him in a way no one else ever had. And together, they spent the days of the monsoon in each other's company, creating memories and stories that would last for eternity. Her grandmother's voice dropped to a whisper. But as the storm began to fade, so did Layla. One morning, when Ayan awoke to the sound of birds singing, Layla was gone. The sky was clear, the rain had stopped, and the village was bathed in sunlight. But Ayan knew that the magic of the storm had ended, and with it, so had his time with Layla. Arya felt a chill run down her spine as her grandmother continued. Ayan searched for her, wandering the village and the hills, calling her name into the wind, but Layla was nowhere to be found. The rain had taken her, as it had taken so many others before her, leaving only the memories behind. Ayan, heartbroken but wiser, understood that love, like the rain, was fleeting. But it was also beautiful, a gift that came and went, leaving behind traces of its existence in the most unexpected places. The rain outside had grown heavier now, a steady downpour that seemed to fill the air with a certain kind of magic. Arya could almost feel the weight of her grandmother's words, as if the rain itself was trying to tell her something. She closed her eyes, imagining the village her grandmother had spoken of, the fields bathed in the soft glow of the monsoon, and Ayan standing beneath the sky, waiting for Layla to return. "Does Ayan ever see her again?" Arya had asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her grandmother had smiled, a wistful look in her eyes. "Perhaps. Sometimes, when the rain is especially heavy, Ayan would find a poem waiting for him on the ground, written in the mud, as if Layla had left it there for him. And sometimes, when he stood in the fields, he would feel a soft touch on his cheek, as if the rain itself was Layla, reaching out to him from the heavens." Arya sat in silence, the rain now a constant companion, the sound of its rhythm filling the space between her thoughts. She had always believed that stories were just stories, tales that took you away from the world, only to bring you back to reality when they ended. But tonight, as the rain fell outside, she felt as though the story of Ayan and Layla had never truly ended. It lived on in the whispers of the storm, in the way the rain touched her skin, in the way it carried memories from one heart to another. As she sat by the window, Arya realized that the rain was more than just water falling from the sky. It was a bridge between worlds, a reminder of the love that once was, and the stories that would never fade away. And in that moment, as the rain washed over the earth, Arya felt the magic of her grandmother's story wrap around her, filling her heart with a sense of wonder and a promise that, sometimes, the most beautiful tales are the ones that never truly end. In a small, dusty corner of a forgotten toy shop, nestled between shelves that had seen better days, there sat a little wooden toy soldier. He had been there for as long as anyone could remember, his painted face worn with age and his wooden limbs creaky from years of neglect. His uniform, once vibrant red and gold, had faded into a dull brown, and his eyes, which had once shone with the gleam of life, were now dull and lifeless. The toy shop was a quiet place, filled with forgotten memories and the scent of old wood. It was the kind of shop that people only visited when they were looking for something rare or unusual, a place where toys of all shapes and sizes gathered dust and stories. But this particular soldier, sitting in the back corner, had a story that no one knew, a story that had never been told. One cold, silent night, as the moonlight filtered through the dusty windows of the shop, something extraordinary happened. The shop, usually so still and silent, seemed to hum with a quiet energy. The wooden soldier, still as ever, felt a strange warmth in his chest, a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years, life. At first, it was barely noticeable. A small twitch of his finger, a tiny shift of his gaze. But then it grew. Slowly, his wooden body began to stretch and move, his joints creaking as they had never creaked before. The paint on his face brightened, and his eyes, once dull, sparkled with the light of 1,000 unspoken dreams. He blinked. He breathed. He was alive. The soldier could hardly believe what was happening to him. How could it be? Toys didn't come to life, not like this. But there he was, standing in the middle of the shop, his wooden feet firmly planted on the cold floor, looking around with wide eyes at the world that seemed so different now. The shelves were no longer just shelves filled with forgotten objects. They were a landscape full of possibilities and mysteries. He looked around the shop, his heart racing with excitement. There were dolls with porcelain faces, stuffed bears with threadbare fur, and tiny mechanical animals that still seemed to hum faintly in their stillness. Everything was as it had been when the shop closed for the night, but everything was different now. The soldier felt a new sense of purpose, a new sense of life coursing through his veins. He took a hesitant step forward, his wooden legs feeling strange beneath him. The floor beneath him creaked as he walked, and he marveled at how real it all felt. He had never known the world beyond his corner of the shop, but now, It was all unfolding before him, full of wonder and mystery. As he explored, he noticed something odd. The other toys, the ones that had always been still and silent, were now stirring. The teddy bears twitched their ears, the dolls blinked their eyes, and even the small wooden train began to chug along its tracks, as though it were alive too. But the soldier didn't know how to talk to them. He was just a toy, after all. And yet, he felt something deep within him. A connection, a need to understand what was happening. He didn't know if he should be afraid or amazed, but the world was so full of possibilities now that he was alive. He wandered through the aisles, meeting toys that were now awake, just like him. His first encounter was with a small ballerina doll, her porcelain face delicate and fragile. She twirled on her little wooden stand, her dress shimmering in the moonlight. When she saw the soldier, she stopped and looked at him, her eyes wide with curiosity. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice soft and sweet, like the wind rustling through the trees. "I'm not sure," the soldier replied, his voice unsure but filled with wonder. "I was just a toy like you, but now I'm alive." The ballerina smiled, a gentle smile that seemed to light up the entire room. "You're like us then," she said. "We've all been waiting for something, but we never knew what it was. Perhaps it's time we found out." The soldier nodded, feeling the warmth of her words. He wasn't alone anymore. There were others who understood what he was feeling, others who were just like him. Together, they could explore this strange new world, this world that was no longer filled with the cold, static existence of toys in a shop, but a world where they could move, speak, and live. As the night went on, the toys came to life one by one, each of them awakening to the magic that had somehow brought them to life. The soldier found himself among a group of toys, each with its own story, its own memories of being forgotten, of being left behind. But now, they were all together, and for the first time, they felt like they mattered. The soldier realized that he wasn't just any toy. He had been given life for a reason that was far beyond his understanding. There was a purpose to this awakening, a purpose to all the other toys coming to life. They were no longer just decorations, no longer just playthings. They had become something more, something real. As the night grew deeper and the first light of dawn began to break through the windows, the soldier found himself standing by the door of the toy shop. He could hear the faint sounds of the world outside, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, the distant hum of life. The soldier knew that the magic that had brought him to life wouldn't last forever. But for this one moment, he had been given the chance to experience life in a way he had never imagined. With a deep breath, he stepped outside, his wooden feet touching the earth for the first time. The rain had stopped, and the world was bathed in the soft glow of early morning light. He turned back to the shop, a place that had once been his prison, and smiled. He wasn't just a toy anymore. He was a part of the world, a part of something greater than himself. And as he walked away, the other toys followed him, their hearts full of hope and their spirits free. Together, they ventured into the unknown, ready to find their place in the world, just as the soldier had found his. For they were no longer toys. They were something far more precious, alive and full of possibility. In a small, quiet town, there was an old, abandoned house at the end of a narrow street. The house, once grand and full of life, now stood in silence, its windows boarded up, its doors locked tight. Overgrown ivy climbed up its walls, and the gate, rusted and broken, creaked in the wind. People spoke in hushed tones about the house, whispering of strange happenings, of things that couldn't be explained, but no one dared go near it. But on a cold autumn evening, a curious young boy named Ali found himself standing in front of the old house, his heart racing with excitement and fear. He had heard the stories, the rumors about the place being haunted, but something about it intrigued him. The mystery of the house called to him, and Ali, with his adventurous spirit, couldn't resist. With trembling hands, he pushed open the rusty gate and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust, and the scent of decay hung heavy around him. Every creak of the floorboards beneath his feet sent shivers down his spine, but he pressed on, determined to uncover the secrets that lay hidden behind the closed doors of the old house. As Ali made his way through the dark hallways, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the sound of his footsteps echoing in the empty rooms. He passed faded portraits on the walls, their faces blurred by time, and old furniture covered in sheets, as if the house itself had been abandoned in a hurry. Finally, Ali reached a door at the end of a narrow corridor. It was different from the others, newer, more sturdy. There was a strange energy around it, as if it was guarding something important. His curiosity getting the better of him, he reached for the doorknob. It was cold to the touch, but it turned easily, and the door creaked open, revealing a small room. Inside, the room was dimly lit, the only light coming from a crack in the wall where the moonlight filtered through. The walls were covered in strange markings, symbols that Ali didn't recognize. A small, wooden chest sat in the center of the room, its surface carved with intricate patterns. But what caught his attention the most was the air, thick with an eerie energy, almost as if the room itself was alive. Ali took a cautious step inside, his eyes drawn to the chest. His heart pounded in his chest as he approached it, his hands shaking as he reached for the latch. With a soft click, the chest opened, and a cold gust of wind rushed out, carrying with it a strange, familiar scent. Inside the chest lay an old, leather-bound book. Its cover was worn, the pages yellowed with age, and its edges frayed as if it had been handled countless times. The book seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, and Ali felt a strange pull to it, as though it were calling to him. He picked up the book carefully, his fingers brushing over the faded letters on the cover. It was written in a language he couldn't understand, but the symbols seemed familiar. As he flipped through the pages, he came across strange drawings and illustrations, some of which depicted scenes of people, others of odd, mystical creatures. There were words too, written in flowing script, but Ali couldn't make sense of them. Suddenly, a voice echoed in the room, soft but clear. It was a whisper, like a distant memory, but Ali heard it as though it were right beside him. "You shouldn't be here." He froze, the book slipping from his hands and falling to the floor with a soft thud. His breath caught in his throat, and he turned slowly, his eyes searching the room for the source of the voice. But there was nothing there. The room was empty. The air grew colder, and Ali felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He backed away from the chest, his heart racing, but the door to the room slammed shut behind him with a deafening bang. He turned to face it, panic rising in his chest. The door was locked. The voice came again, closer this time, filled with a sense of urgency. "Leave now." Ali's mind raced. He had to get out of there. He tried the door again, but it wouldn't budge. His hands shook as he frantically searched for another way out, but there was none. The walls seemed to close in around him, the markings on them growing more vivid, almost as if they were alive. He looked down at the book on the floor. The pages fluttered as if caught in a breeze, though there was no wind in the room. The symbols on the pages seemed to move, shifting and changing, as if they were alive too. Ali bent down to pick it up, and as his fingers touched the book, A sudden jolt of energy shot through his body, sending him stumbling backward. The room spun, and Ali's vision blurred. The world around him seemed to distort, the walls stretching and warping. He heard a distant, echoing voice, chanting something in that strange language, and the air grew thick with power. He could feel the ground shaking beneath him, and for a moment, he feared that the house itself was going to collapse. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the shaking stopped. The room was still once more, and the door creaked open. Ali, trembling with fear and confusion, didn't need to be told twice. He grabbed the book and rushed out of the room, running down the hallway and back to the front door. His heart pounded in his chest, and he didn't stop until he was out of the house, the door slamming shut behind him. As he stood in front of the old house, gasping for breath, the wind picked up, and for a moment he thought he saw a figure standing in the window watching him. But when he blinked, it was gone. The house stood silent once more, its secrets hidden behind closed doors. Ali, clutching the book tightly in his hands, knew that he had uncovered a mystery that was far bigger than he could have ever imagined. The house had a story that was waiting to be told. But for now, the mystery would remain unsolved, locked away in the darkness of the old house. And as he walked away, he knew one thing for sure. The secrets of that room, the voice, and the strange power of the book would haunt him forever. In a small village nestled between the hills, there was a house that stood quietly at the edge of the forest. It was an old, humble house, with crumbling walls and a roof that had seen better days. But inside, it was filled with warmth and love. The house belonged to a kind-hearted woman named Noor, who was known throughout the village for her gentle nature and caring soul. She had spent her entire life in this village, and though she had little in terms of material wealth, she had more than enough love to give. Noor lived alone, her husband having passed away many years ago, and her children were all grown and living far away in the city. Yet she was never lonely. Every evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Noor would light a small oil lamp by her window. She believed in the power of light, and the simple act of lighting that lamp filled her with a sense of peace and hope. The villagers often passed by Noor's house on their way home, and they would smile at the soft glow of her lamp shining from the window, a beacon of warmth in the dark. They knew that, no matter how difficult their own lives might be, there was always one place where they could find comfort and peace, Noor's home. One particularly cold winter evening, as the wind howled through the trees and snow began to fall in thick, heavy flakes, something unusual happened. Noor was sitting by her window, her hands wrapped around a cup of warm tea, staring at the flickering light of her lamp. She had just finished a long day of preparing food for the poor families in the village and was ready to retire to bed when she noticed something strange. The light from her lamp, usually steady and unwavering, began to flicker. At first, Noor thought it was just the wind, but as the minutes passed, the flickering grew more intense, as if the light was struggling to stay alive. Noor's heart raced with concern. She had never seen her lamp behave this way before. She stood up and walked over to the window, staring out into the dark night. The village was covered in a blanket of snow, and there was no sign of movement except for the occasional gust of wind. Yet, Noor couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She felt an unsettling silence in the air, as if the world was holding its breath. Noor turned back to the lamp, her hands trembling as she reached out to adjust the wick. But as she touched it, the flames suddenly went out, plunging the room into darkness. Her breath caught in her throat, and for a moment, she stood there in the stillness, unsure of what to do. Just then, a knock came at the door. Noor's heart skipped a beat. Who could be out there in such a storm? She quickly opened the door, and standing there in the cold was a young man, his face pale and weary, his clothes soaked by the falling snow. "Please," the young man said, his voice shaking, "may I come in? I've lost my way in the storm." Noor, though startled, immediately stepped aside to let him in. She could see that he was exhausted and cold, his eyes filled with fear and confusion. She quickly wrapped him in a warm blanket and offered him a seat by the fire. "Thank you," the young man murmured, his voice soft. "I don't know what happened. I was just passing through and the storm. It came out of nowhere." Noor smiled gently, offering him a cup of tea. "You're safe now," she said kindly. "Don't worry about the storm. It's a blessing that you found your way here." The young man took a sip of the tea, his hands still trembling. "I don't know what I would have done without you," he whispered. "I was lost, afraid, and alone. But then I saw your light. It was the only thing I could see in the darkness. It gave me hope." Noor's heart warmed at his words. She had always believed that the light from her lamp had a purpose beyond just illuminating her room. It was a beacon for anyone who needed guidance in the darkness. Little did she know, it had led this young man to her, just when he needed it most. As the night wore on, the storm raged outside, but inside Noor's home, there was warmth and light. The young man shared his story with Noor, telling her how he had been traveling for days, trying to find a new place to start over, but the harsh winter had caught him off guard. He had lost all hope, but when he saw the light from her window, it was as if a spark had been reignited in him. Noor listened quietly, offering him comfort and advice. She told him that no matter how dark the world may seem, there is always a light that will guide us through. Even in the deepest night, she said, there is always a glimmer of hope, a light that will lead you to where you need to be. The young man nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I didn't think I would find it," he said softly. "But now I know. I know that there's always a way, even in the darkest moments." The storm eventually subsided, and as dawn broke, the young man stood to leave. Noor walked him to the door, her heart filled with a sense of peace. "Take care," she said warmly, "and remember, the light will always find you when you need it most." As the young man disappeared into the morning mist, Noor returned to her window. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft, golden light over the snow-covered village. And there, in the distance, Noor could see the faint outline of the young man walking with renewed confidence, his steps sure and steady. She smiled to herself, knowing that her little lamp had done its job once again. It had brought light to someone who had lost their way, just as it had always done for so many others. Noor's heart swelled with pride and love, for she knew that even the smallest light could make the biggest difference in someone's life. As she turned back to her home, Noor felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The storm had passed, and with it, the darkness had been replaced by the warmth of the morning sun. Noor understood more than ever that sometimes all it takes is one small light to guide someone through the darkest of nights. And in that moment, she knew that her light, no matter how small, would always shine. In the heart of a vast jungle, where the trees whispered ancient secrets and the air was thick with the scent of wildflowers, there lived a young boy named Arif. His home was a small hut on the outskirts of the jungle, a place where the world seemed to slow down and nature thrived in all its untamed beauty. Arif had grown up surrounded by the sounds of rustling leaves, chirping birds, and the occasional growl of a distant predator. His life was one with the jungle, filled with curiosity, adventure, and a deep connection to the land around him. From a very young age, Arif had always been fascinated by the jungle. While other children spent their days playing games or running around in the village, Arif would wander into the heart of the jungle, following the winding trails that only he seemed to know. He had no fear of the dense woods or the creatures that roamed within it. To him, the jungle was a playground, and every tree, rock, and stream held a new story waiting to be discovered. Arif's most cherished time was when the sun began to set, casting an orange glow over the entire jungle. As the night creatures began to stir, Arif would climb up a tall tree and gaze at the stars, feeling as if he were one with the sky. The jungle was his world, and he loved it with all his heart. But one night, as Arif lay on his favorite tree branch, looking at the sky, something extraordinary happened. As he drifted off to sleep, a soft voice called to him from the depths of the jungle. It was a voice so gentle, yet so strong, that it sent shivers down his spine. "Arif," the voice whispered, "come, follow me and see the dreams of the jungle." Arif, curious and eager for adventure, quickly climbed down from the tree and followed the voice through the dense undergrowth. He walked deeper into the jungle than he had ever dared before, the trees growing thicker, the sounds of the animals more distant, and the air heavier with mystery. The path seemed to lead him to a secluded part of the jungle, a place where the moonlight barely touched the ground. There, in the middle of a clearing, Arif found a magnificent sight. Before him stood a glowing tree, its branches heavy with shimmering fruit that sparkled like stars. The air around it was filled with a soft, otherworldly glow, and the ground beneath his feet seemed to hum with energy. The voice spoke again, this time clearer and more welcoming. "Arif," the voice said, "this is the dream tree. It holds the dreams of the jungle, the dreams of all who live here, from the smallest ant to the mightiest tiger. Tonight, it is your turn to witness these dreams." Arif, both awestruck and excited, stepped forward and reached out to touch one of the glowing fruits. As soon as his fingers brushed against it, a rush of images flooded his mind. He saw the life of the jungle in ways he had never imagined. He saw the majestic elephants roaming the plains, their trumpeting calls echoing through the forest. He saw the graceful deer bounding through the trees, their hooves barely touching the ground. He saw the birds soaring high above, their wings cutting through the air like whispers of freedom. But then, something strange happened. As the dream continued, Arif began to see his own life, his childhood in the jungle, playing out before his eyes. He saw himself running through the woods with his friends, laughing and shouting as they explored the hidden corners of the jungle. He saw himself swimming in the cool streams, feeling the rush of the water against his skin. He saw himself lying on the same tree branch where he had often watched the stars, lost in thought and wonder. The vision shifted, and suddenly Arif saw a future that he had never dared to dream of. He saw himself as an elder, sitting by the fire with his grandchildren, telling them stories of the jungle, of his adventures, and of the dreams he had witnessed as a child. He saw the jungle still thriving, full of life and energy, just as it had been when he was a boy. The vision then faded, and Arif found himself standing alone in the clearing once more. The dream tree had returned to its peaceful state, the fruit once again glowing softly, as if nothing had ever happened. Arif stood there, his heart racing, his mind full of the incredible journey he had just experienced. "You have seen the dreams of the jungle," the voice said, now fading away into the night. "Never forget what you have witnessed. The jungle lives on in the hearts of those who love it, and its dreams are carried through generations." Arif nodded, a deep sense of understanding and gratitude filling his soul. He had always known that the jungle was more than just a place. It was a living, breathing entity, full of life and stories. But now, he understood that the jungle held more than just the present. It held the past, the future, and all the dreams in between. With a heart full of wonder, Arif slowly made his way back to his home. As he walked, he looked around at the trees, the animals, and the stars above, feeling a deep connection to them all. The jungle had shared its dreams with him, and now he carried those dreams in his heart. The next morning, when the sun rose over the horizon, Arif woke up with a new sense of purpose. He knew that his childhood in the jungle was not just a series of adventures. It was a legacy, a dream that would live on for generations to come. And as he continued to explore the jungle, he would always remember the dream tree and the lessons it had taught him. The jungle was alive with dreams, and Arif was one of the dreamers. He smiled to himself, knowing that the magic of the jungle would never fade, and that its stories would continue to live on in the hearts of those who listened closely enough to hear them. And as he ran through the jungle, his laughter echoing through the trees, he knew that he was part of something much bigger than himself, a part of the never-ending dream of the jungle. In an old, forgotten attic, nestled deep within a house that had seen generations come and go, there lay a dusty, rusted chest. It was a small wooden treasure chest, its edges worn down by time, its surface etched with intricate patterns that no longer held the vibrancy they once had. This chest, long hidden away, had been passed down from one generation to the next, a keepsake of memories and stories, each layer holding the weight of years gone by. No one remembered when it was first brought into the house, but it had always been there, sitting quietly, waiting for the right hands to open it. The chest was locked, its key long lost to the sands of time, but the stories of its contents had lived on in whispers. People often spoke of the chest in hushed tones, wondering what treasures it might hold inside. Was it full of gold coins, heirlooms, or something far more valuable, memories, moments, and forgotten dreams? No one knew for sure, but it had remained a mystery, a piece of the past that begged to be uncovered. One rainy afternoon, as the wind howled outside and the scent of wet earth filled the air, a curious girl named Mira ventured into the attic. She was the youngest in the family, with an insatiable thirst for adventure and a heart full of wonder. Mira had heard the stories about the chest many times, and each time, her imagination soared, dreaming of what secrets it might hold. Today, as the rain tapped softly against the windows, Mira decided it was time to find out for herself. Climbing the creaky stairs to the attic, Mira was met with the familiar sight of old furniture, forgotten knickknacks, and piles of dusty books. The attic, though dark and musty, felt like a place of endless possibilities. It was a world frozen in time, where the past lingered like a shadow, waiting to be rediscovered. There, tucked in the farthest corner, was the chest. It was more magnificent than Mira had imagined. Even through the dust and grime, she could see the faint outline of its beautiful carvings. Her heart raced with excitement as she knelt before it, running her fingers over the surface. The chest seemed to hum with an energy of its own, as if it recognized that it was about to be opened after so many years of silence. Mira searched the attic, her eyes scanning the piles of old books and papers for something, anything, that might help her unlock the chest. And then, hidden beneath a pile of old blankets, she found it, a small, rusted key. It was delicate, its shape worn down by time, but it looked as though it might fit the lock of the chest. Her hands trembled as she inserted the key into the lock, the cold metal fitting perfectly. With a soft click, the chest creaked open, revealing its contents. Inside, there was no gold or jewels, but something far more precious. A collection of old letters, faded photographs, and tiny trinkets, each one telling a story of a life lived long ago. As Mira carefully sifted through the items, she uncovered the history of her ancestors, their joys, their struggles, and their dreams. The letters spoke of love, loss, and hope, of a family that had come together in times of hardship and celebrated in times of joy. The photographs captured moments frozen in time: a wedding, a child's first steps, a family gathering. There were even small mementos: a seashell from a trip to the beach, a locket worn by her great-grandmother, and a dried flower pressed between the pages of an old book. Each item held a memory, a fragment of the past that had been carefully preserved, waiting for someone to discover it again. Mira realized that the chest wasn't just a collection of objects. It was a window into a world that no longer existed, a world that had shaped the present she now lived in. As Mira continued to explore the chest, she felt as though she were walking through the lives of her ancestors, hearing their voices, sharing their experiences. It was as if the chest had opened a door to a hidden world, one filled with stories and emotions that had been forgotten by time. With each letter she read and each photograph she admired, Mira began to understand the true value of the chest. It wasn't about the things it contained, but the memories it held, the legacy of a family passed down through the generations. The chest was a reminder that the past was never truly gone. It lived on in the stories we told, the things we kept, and the love we shared. As the rain continued to fall outside, Mira sat in the attic, surrounded by the treasures of the past. The chest had opened her eyes to a world she had never known, a world that was just as much a part of her as the one she lived in now. She smiled, knowing that she had uncovered something far more valuable than gold, a connection to her roots, to the generations that had come before her, and to the world that had shaped her. The chest, once a mystery, had revealed its secrets, and in doing so, had opened up a new chapter in Mira's life. She carefully closed the chest, knowing that it wasn't just a relic of the past, but a living memory, a piece of her family's history that she would carry with her forever. And as she descended from the attic, she felt a deep sense of gratitude, for she knew that the world she had uncovered was a part of her, and that its stories would live on in her heart for generations to come. Once upon a time, in a vast and peaceful forest, there lived a small bird named Chirpy. She was no larger than the palm of a hand, with soft, golden feathers that shimmered in the sunlight. Chirpy was known for her vibrant songs that could be heard from miles away, and her curious spirit that never allowed her to stay in one place for long. Every day, she would fly from one tree to another, exploring the world around her. The forest was her home, but she had always wondered what lay beyond the green canopy of leaves. One evening, as the sun began to set and painted the sky with shades of orange and purple, Chirpy sat on her favorite branch and gazed at the horizon. She had heard tales of distant lands from the older birds, lands where the mountains touched the sky and the rivers flowed like silver threads through the earth. She imagined what those places would look like and felt a deep desire to see them for herself. The idea of venturing beyond the familiar woods filled her heart with excitement, but also with a bit of fear. After all, she had never flown beyond the forest, and the world outside was full of unknowns. As the days passed, Chirpy could no longer ignore the pull of adventure that grew stronger in her heart. She made up her mind. She would set off on a long journey to see the world beyond her forest. She took one last look at her cozy tree and flapped her wings with determination. The wind whispered around her, as if encouraging her to take flight. And so, with a deep breath, Chirpy soared into the sky, her tiny wings cutting through the cool evening air. Her journey was not easy. The farther she flew from her home, the more challenging it became. She flew over fields of tall grass, through bustling towns, and across vast stretches of desert. With each new place she visited, Chirpy encountered new sights, sounds, and creatures. Sometimes she would rest on a branch or a rock, watching the world below her in awe. Other times she had to keep moving, for the skies above were vast, and the world was full of wonders waiting to be discovered. Along her journey, Chirpy met many different birds, some who were kind and offered her advice, and others who warned her about the dangers of the world. There was an old owl who told her that the world outside was full of challenges, but also great beauty. A wise eagle shared stories of soaring over towering mountains, while a playful sparrow taught her how to find joy in every moment of her travels. Each bird she met had its own story to tell, and with every encounter, Chirpy felt her world growing larger and more wonderful. But it wasn't just the birds who left an impression on her. Chirpy also encountered many other creatures along the way: rabbits, deer, foxes, and even humans. There were moments of kindness, like when a little girl offered her some crumbs of bread during a long, tiring day. But there were also moments of fear, like when a storm caught her mid-flight, and she had to seek shelter in a hollow tree until the winds calmed down. As the months passed, Chirpy's journey took her to places she had never imagined. She flew across sparkling lakes, soared over towering mountains, and marveled at the endless stretches of fields that seemed to go on forever. But despite all the beauty she encountered, there were times when she felt lonely. She missed the forest, the familiar sounds of rustling leaves, and the comforting songs of her fellow birds. There were moments when the weight of the world seemed too much to bear, and Chirpy longed for the peace and safety of home. One day, after a particularly long flight over a vast ocean, Chirpy found herself exhausted. Her wings were sore, and she longed for a place to rest. As the sun began to set, she spotted a small island in the distance, surrounded by calm, turquoise waters. With the last of her strength, Chirpy flew toward the island and landed on a palm tree. The island was peaceful, and as she settled into the branches, she realized that the long journey had changed her. She had seen so much of the world, and in doing so, she had learned more about herself than she could have imagined. As the days passed on the island, Chirpy took time to reflect on her travels. She had discovered new places, met wonderful creatures, and faced challenges that had made her stronger. But what she had learned the most was the importance of home. The world was full of beauty and adventure, but there was no place like the forest she had left behind. She realized that while adventure was important, it was equally important to know where you came from, to find peace in the familiar, and to cherish the moments of stillness. After resting for some time, Chirpy felt ready to return. She spread her wings and took flight once more, this time heading back to the forest she had once called home. The journey back was easier than the one before, for now, Chirpy knew the world outside, and it didn't seem as vast or daunting. The sky seemed like a familiar friend, guiding her back to the place she had always belonged. When Chirpy finally returned to her forest, the birds greeted her with joy, eager to hear her stories. She perched on her favorite branch, surrounded by her friends, and began to sing the most beautiful song she had ever sung. Her journey had taught her many things, but the greatest lesson of all was that no matter how far you go, home is always where the heart is. And so, Chirpy continued to sing her songs, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She had seen the world, and now she knew that sometimes the most important journeys are the ones that lead you back to where you started. In a small village, hidden in the heart of a vast green landscape, there lived a tiny piece of straw named Tinka. Tinka was unlike the other pieces of straw that lay scattered across the ground. While others were content with simply being part of the earth, Tinka felt a longing, an inner desire for something more. As he lay among the blades of grass, looking up at the sky, he would often dream of becoming something much greater than just a mere speck on the earth. He wished to be part of the wind, to float high above the ground, to see the world from a new perspective. Every day, Tinka would gaze at the trees towering above him, their leaves swaying gently in the wind. He would watch the birds soar across the sky with such grace, and sometimes he would wish he could do the same. But Tinka, being only a tiny piece of straw, had no wings to carry him. He was bound to the earth, waiting for something to change, something to offer him the chance to rise up and break free. The seasons passed, and Tinka remained on the ground, feeling more and more distant from the world he had always admired. Yet, in his heart, he refused to give up on his dreams. He believed that somewhere out there was a chance for him to escape the ground and experience the beauty of the world from above. One evening, after a heavy storm, the air was still and calm. The rain had stopped, and the clouds began to part, allowing the last rays of the sun to shine through. It was in that quiet moment that something incredible happened. Tinka felt a gentle breeze that lifted him off the ground. At first, he wasn't sure what was happening, but the wind was strong enough to carry him into the air. Tinka felt a surge of excitement and wonder as he was lifted higher and higher, twisting and turning in the breeze. The world around him seemed so different now. The fields he had known for so long looked small from up above, and the trees were mere dots on the landscape. He was free. The wind, which had once seemed so distant and unattainable, was now his companion. Tinka danced with the breeze, feeling lighter and more alive than ever before. For the first time in his life, he was part of something greater. As he floated through the air, Tinka marveled at the beauty of the world. He saw the vast expanse of the forest stretching out beneath him, the rivers glistening in the fading light, and the mountains that seemed to touch the sky. The colors of the world were brighter from up here, and Tinka felt as if he were part of the very fabric of nature. He no longer felt small or insignificant. The sky, the trees, and the earth below were all connected, and now Tinka was a part of it all. After what felt like an eternity, the wind gently guided Tinka toward a tall oak tree. The branch extended toward him as if it were inviting him to rest. With a soft landing, Tinka found himself perched on the branch of the great tree. For a moment, he sat there, taking in the view, feeling a deep sense of peace. The world below him was vast and beautiful, and Tinka realized that he was no longer just a tiny piece of straw. He had become something more. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sky turned a deep shade of purple, and the stars began to twinkle above. But there was something else, something extraordinary. Tinka began to glow. At first, it was a faint shimmer, but soon he was shining brightly, his tiny form casting a soft light in the darkness. He looked around in wonder. The stars above him were glowing too, but Tinka felt a special connection to them. He wasn't just a piece of straw anymore. He had transformed into a part of the sky itself. The more Tinka glowed, the more he realized that he wasn't just shining for himself. He was now part of something far greater than he had ever imagined. The stars, the trees, the wind, and the earth were all connected, and Tinka was now one of them. He had become a beacon in the night, a reminder that even the smallest of things could make a big difference in the world. As days passed, Tinka continued to shine brightly in the night sky. People below would look up at the stars, marveling at the beauty of the night, unaware that one of those stars was once a tiny piece of straw, just like the rest. But Tinka knew. He knew that he had come a long way from where he had started. He had found his place among the stars, and in doing so, he had found his true purpose. One evening, a young girl stood beneath the sky, gazing up at the stars. She had always felt like Tinka once had, small and insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But as she looked up at the stars, her heart was filled with hope. She felt a connection to the sky, as though it were telling her that she too could become something more than she had ever imagined. And in that moment, she saw Tinka shining brightly above, a small but powerful reminder that even the most ordinary of beings could find their way to greatness. Tinka continued to glow in the sky every night, his light casting a soft, comforting glow over the world below. He had become a symbol of hope and transformation, showing others that no matter how small or insignificant they might feel, they too could rise above their circumstances and find their place in the world. And so, Tinka's journey continued. He had gone from a piece of straw, lying forgotten on the ground, to a star in the night sky, shining brightly for all to see. His light would never fade, and he would continue to inspire those who looked up, reminding them that they too could rise above their limitations and find their place in the vast, beautiful world. In a quiet garden, hidden away from the world, there bloomed a delicate flower named Gulab. Unlike other flowers, Gulab had a special gift, a gift that no one had ever seen before. Every night, when the moonlight bathed the garden in its soft glow, Gulab would begin to speak. It wasn't just the sound of the wind or the rustling of leaves. No, it was a soft, melodic voice that seemed to rise from the heart of the flower itself. The creatures of the garden had long been aware of Gulab's strange ability, though they never quite understood it. The butterflies would flutter by, curious but careful not to disturb him. The crickets would pause in their chirping, as if listening intently to the words that filled the night air. Even the wise old owl, who often perched in the tallest tree, would turn his head toward the source of the voice, though he could never see the flower. Gulab, in all his beauty, spoke of many things. Sometimes he would tell stories of the stars, speaking of their far-off places and the endless sky that stretched above him. Other times, he would speak of the earth beneath him, of the rich soil and the roots that supported him, grounding him in the world. His voice was soothing, gentle, and wise, as though he had seen the rise and fall of countless seasons. His words, though soft, held great meaning. One night, a curious young girl named Meher wandered into the garden. Meher was a quiet soul, often lost in her thoughts. She lived nearby and would pass by the garden every day on her way to school. But this night, something felt different. The moon was full, casting its silvery light over everything. She had never paid much attention to the flowers, always too caught up in her own world. But tonight she felt a pull, as though the garden was calling her. As she stepped into the garden, she noticed something strange. The air felt different. It was as if the flowers themselves were alive, not just in the way they bloomed and withered with the seasons, but in the way they seemed to speak to her. It wasn't the kind of voice she could hear with her ears, but rather one that she felt deep within her chest, as if the very essence of the garden was trying to communicate. Meher wandered deeper into the garden, drawn by the feeling, until she found herself standing before the most beautiful flower she had ever seen. It was a single red rose, its petals soft and velvety, and it shimmered in the moonlight. She knelt down to get a closer look and was startled when, for the first time, she heard Gulab's voice. "I've been waiting for you," Gulab said, his voice like the gentle rustling of the wind. Meher blinked in surprise. She looked around, unsure if the words had come from the flower or from the world itself. Who said that?" she asked, her voice a whisper. "I did," Gulab replied. "I speak when the moon is full, and tonight, it has called you here." Meher was stunned. She had heard of flowers having fragrances, and some even said they could heal, But never had she heard of a flower that could talk. Why do you talk? She asked, her curiosity getting the better of her. Because I must, Gulab answered. I have a story to share. A story of the night, of the stars, of the earth. And tonight, it's your turn to listen. Meher sat back on the soft grass, her heart racing with excitement and wonder. What story do you have to tell? Gulab took a deep breath, or at least, it seemed as though he did, and began his tale. I have been here for many years in this garden, he started, his voice steady and calm. Each night I watch the sky, I feel the breeze, and I listen to the stories that nature whispers. But there is one story that I have never shared, for it is a story of pain and beauty, of love and loss. Meher sat in silence, her eyes wide with anticipation. She had never heard a flower speak of such things. She leaned in, listening closely to Gulab. Long ago, Gulab continued, before I had grown into the flower you see today, I was a tiny seed buried deep beneath the soil. The earth was dark and I was alone. But I had a dream. I dreamed of reaching the sun, of stretching my petals toward the sky and feeling the warmth of its light. I dreamed of being more than just a seed, more than just a part of the earth. I wanted to be free, to bloom, to be seen. Meher could feel the sadness in Gulab's voice, the longing that echoed in his words. But growing takes time, he continued. I was small and the world was vast. There were storms, heavy rains, and winds that tried to knock me down. Sometimes I thought I would never make it, that I would remain buried forever. But with each passing day, I stretched a little more toward the surface and I grew. And one day, the sun found me. I bloomed, and for the first time, I felt the warmth of its rays. Meher felt a deep sense of awe and wonder as Gulab spoke. She could picture the tiny seed struggling to break free from the soil, yearning for the sun. But as with all things, Gulab said, his voice softer now, beauty does not last forever. The winds came again, stronger this time, and the rains fell harder. I was shaken, my petals torn, but I didn't give up. I knew that each storm was a lesson, each gust of wind a reminder that life is not always gentle. The stars watched me from above, and the moon, like tonight, was always there, guiding me through the darkness. Meher closed her eyes for a moment, her heart swelling with emotion. She had always felt a connection to the moon and the stars, and now she understood. They were not just far-off things in the sky, they were part of a greater story, a story that included all living things. When the night is dark, Gulab said, and the world seems lost, remember that it is only in the darkness that we can truly see the light. I have learned that, no matter how many storms come, no matter how many nights are long and cold, there is always a reason to bloom again. Meher looked up at the moon, her eyes filled with tears. She realized that she too had been through storms in her own life, storms of doubt, fear, and loneliness. But like Gulab, she could bloom again. She could reach for the light, no matter how hard the winds blew. Gulab's voice grew softer, almost like a whisper. I speak so that you may hear, so that you may never forget. You too are part of this story. The flowers, the stars, the earth, they all speak in their own way. And sometimes they speak just for you. Meher stood up slowly, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. She knew that this moment would stay with her forever. As she walked away from the garden, the moon still shining brightly above, she felt a deep connection to the world around her. The flower's words had awakened something inside her, a deep knowing that, no matter how dark the night, there would always be a way to bloom. There was once a bridge, not made of steel or stone, but built entirely of dreams. It was known as the Bridge of Dreams, a place where people crossed with their hopes, their desires, and their deepest wishes. This bridge, however, was not visible to everyone. Only those who truly believed in the power of dreams could see it, and for those who did, it became a sacred path that led them to the very heart of their dreams. In a small, peaceful town lived a young girl named Anaya. She had always been a dreamer, lost in thoughts of places she had never been, of things she had never seen. Every night, before she closed her eyes to sleep, Anaya would imagine herself walking on a bridge that stretched out into the night sky. The bridge was made of shimmering light, its edges glowing with colors that seemed to change every time she looked at them. She would walk on this bridge in her dreams, her heart filled with excitement and wonder. But it wasn't just a random dream. For Anaya, this bridge felt different. It wasn't merely a figment of her imagination. It felt like something real, something tangible. Each night, the bridge would appear to her, beckoning her to cross it, to leave behind the world of reality and venture into a place where anything was possible. And so, night after night, she crossed this bridge, following the path of light that seemed to promise her something incredible, something beyond her wildest imagination. One evening, as Anaya sat by her window, gazing at the stars, something strange happened. A soft, gentle voice called to her from the distance, carrying with it a warmth that made her heart race. It was a voice she had never heard before, yet it felt familiar, comforting. It spoke to her not with words, but with feelings, with emotions that she had carried inside her for years. "Come," the voice whispered, "the bridge is waiting for you." Anaya's breath caught in her throat. She had always dreamt of this moment, of stepping onto the bridge in the real world. But she had always assumed it was just a dream, a wish that would never come true. Yet now, in the quiet of the night, it felt as though the bridge was no longer just a figment of her imagination. It was real. Without thinking, Anaya stood up, her heart pounding in her chest. She walked to the door, her feet light and swift as if guided by some invisible force. She stepped outside into the cool night air, feeling the softness of the grass beneath her feet. The stars above shone brighter than ever, and the moonlight bathed the world in a silver glow. The air seemed to hum with possibility, and Anaya felt an undeniable pull toward the unknown. As she reached the edge of the forest near her house, she saw it. There, in the distance, the bridge appeared before her, stretching out into the sky. It was more magnificent than anything she had ever imagined, its shimmering light casting a glow that lit up the entire landscape. The colors of the bridge seemed to dance, shifting between hues of violet, blue, and gold, as though it were alive, breathing with the rhythm of her heartbeat. Anaya's eyes widened in awe. The bridge was not like any ordinary bridge. It was a bridge made of dreams, a bridge that could only be seen by those who dared to dream big. And here she was, standing at the beginning of it, with her heart full of longing and hope. With a deep breath, Anaya took her first step onto the bridge. As soon as her foot touched the light, a wave of warmth and peace washed over her. She felt light, as if she were floating above the ground. The air around her seemed to shimmer with magic, and she couldn't help but smile as she looked ahead. The bridge stretched endlessly before her, a path that seemed to promise endless possibilities. As Anaya walked forward, she noticed something incredible. Each step she took was accompanied by a soft, melodic sound, as if the bridge itself was singing to her. The more she walked, the more the melody seemed to grow, echoing in her ears and filling her heart with joy. She had never felt so alive, so free. It was as if the bridge was leading her toward a place where her dreams could finally come true. The bridge was not just a passage, It was a journey in itself. As Anaya walked, the world around her began to change. The stars above seemed to grow brighter, swirling around her like constellations coming to life. The path beneath her feet shifted, transforming into a glowing trail that seemed to lead her deeper into the heart of her dreams. Along the way, she encountered glimpses of her past, memories of childhood, of moments she had long forgotten but had always carried with her. The bridge allowed her to relive those moments, each one a part of the story that had shaped her. She saw herself as a young girl, full of wonder and hope, and she felt the innocence of those years wash over her like a comforting embrace. But as she continued her journey, Anaya began to notice something new. There were other figures walking beside her on the bridge. They were not physically there, but she could sense their presence, their energy. They were the people who had crossed the bridge before her, those whose dreams had come true, whose hopes had been realized. They walked beside her, silently offering their support, their wisdom, and their strength. And in a small, peaceful town lived a girl named Meher. She was a quiet, introspective person, often lost in her thoughts, watching the world around her from a distance. Despite being surrounded by people, Meher often felt a sense of loneliness. She had many acquaintances, but no one she could truly call a close friend. It was not that she didn't try. She did, but it seemed like everyone else was always busy, preoccupied with their own lives. Each night, after a long day, Meher would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, her thoughts racing. It was during these quiet moments that she would often wonder if there was more to life than this. If there was a friend out there who truly understood her, someone who would listen, someone who could offer the comfort and companionship she longed for. One evening, as she lay in bed, trying to drift off to sleep, something unusual happened. As her eyes fluttered shut and the world around her slowly faded away, she felt a gentle presence beside her. It wasn't the kind of feeling one would expect from a dream. It was comforting, warm, and strangely familiar. She opened her eyes but saw nothing. Yet, the sensation of someone being there lingered. Confused and curious, Meher closed her eyes again, thinking it was just a passing sensation. But as the night went on, it happened again. She felt someone sitting next to her, a presence that didn't speak but made her feel safe. No words were exchanged, but there was an undeniable connection. Meher felt like she wasn't alone anymore, even though no one was physically there. The next night, it happened again. And the night after that, Meher began to look forward to these quiet, peaceful moments. She couldn't explain it, but it felt as though she had found a friend, someone who existed only in the realm of dreams, someone who could offer her the comfort she had been searching for. She called this friend her dream companion. As the days passed, Meher's dreams became richer, more vivid. Her dream companion was always there, sitting beside her in the quiet darkness, offering her the solace she had longed for. Sometimes, they would walk together through beautiful, surreal landscapes, exploring places that only existed in her mind. Other times, they would sit in silence, just being present, and Meher felt a deep sense of peace. What struck Meher the most was the fact that this friend didn't need to speak. They didn't need to share words to communicate. It was as if their very presence was enough. Meher felt understood in a way she never had before. She would wake up each morning feeling a sense of calm, as though her dream companion had left her with a piece of their peace. But there was one thing Meher couldn't understand. Why was this friend only present when she slept? Why couldn't she see them when she was awake? She would often lie in bed during the day, hoping to feel the same warmth, the same comfort, but it never came. The dream companion only visited her during the night, in the depths of her sleep. One day, Meher confided in her grandmother, who had always been a source of wisdom for her. Her grandmother listened patiently, a knowing smile on her face as Meher described her nightly experiences. "Sometimes, my dear," her grandmother said, "the people we need most are not the ones we can touch with our hands. Some friendships are meant to be felt, not seen. Maybe your friend is someone who has crossed paths with you in another world, a world where dreams are the language of the heart." Meher's grandmother's words stayed with her for days. Could it be true? Could her dream companion be someone from another world, someone who existed beyond the boundaries of waking life? Meher didn't have the answers, but she knew one thing for sure. This friendship, however strange it might be, brought her a sense of peace she could not find anywhere else. As the months went by, Meher's bond with her dream companion deepened. She found herself eagerly anticipating sleep each night, knowing that her friend would be there to guide her through the dream world. And though she still didn't fully understand why this friendship existed only in her dreams, she had come to accept it as a beautiful part of her life. One night, something extraordinary happened. As Meher lay in bed, her heart filled with a strange mixture of excitement and curiosity, she felt her dream companion's presence as usual. But this time, they didn't sit beside her. Instead, they took her hand, leading her on a journey through the stars. Together, they flew through the vastness of space, soaring above the Earth, past planets, comets, and galaxies. Meher felt as though she was floating in a world of infinite possibilities, her heart soaring with joy. "Where are we going?" Meher asked, though she knew the answer didn't require words. "To the place where dreams are born," the dream companion whispered in her ear, the sound of their voice echoing in her heart. As they flew, Meher could see glimpses of other dreamers, their dreams intertwining like threads of light, forming a vast tapestry of hope, desire, and longing. It was a beautiful sight, one that filled her heart with wonder and awe. Eventually, they arrived at a place filled with soft, glowing lights. It was a peaceful, serene place, where everything seemed to be in perfect harmony. The dream companion looked at her with a warm, gentle smile, as if to say that this was the place where dreams found their purpose. "You've always known me, Meher," the dream companion said softly. "I am a part of you, the part of your soul that seeks peace, that longs for connection. I am the reflection of your own heart, your own desires. You have always had the ability to find comfort in your dreams, to find the friendship you need, even if it is only within the quiet hours of the night." Meher smiled, understanding now that her dream companion wasn't just a figment of her imagination, but a manifestation of her deepest self, a reminder that she was never truly alone. The next morning, when Meher awoke, she felt a deep sense of peace that stayed with her throughout the day. She knew that her dream companion would always be there, waiting for her when the night fell, guiding her through the realm of dreams. And so, Meher continued to live her life, embracing both the waking world and the world of dreams. She had learned that sometimes, the most meaningful friendships are the ones that are felt with the heart, not seen with the eyes. And as long as she could close her eyes and feel the presence of her dream companion, she knew that she would never truly be alone. With each step, Anaya felt herself growing stronger, more confident. She realized that the bridge was not just a place to reach her dreams, it was also a place to find herself, to understand her own strength, her own desires. It was as if the bridge was showing her that the power to make her dreams a reality was always inside her, waiting to be unlocked. As she reached the end of the bridge, Anaya felt a deep sense of fulfillment, of peace. She had crossed the bridge, but more importantly, she had crossed into a new chapter of her life. She had left behind the fears and doubts that had once held her back, and she had embraced the possibility of something greater. At the end of the bridge, there was a garden, a beautiful, serene place filled with flowers of every color. The air smelled sweet, and the ground beneath her feet was soft and welcoming. It was a place where dreams took root and grew into reality. And in the center of the garden stood a tree, its branches reaching up to the sky, its leaves shimmering with the same light that had guided Anaya on her journey. As she approached the tree, Anaya realized that this was not just the end of her journey, it was the beginning. The bridge of dreams had led her here, but now, she had to plant the seeds of her dreams and watch them grow. It was up to her to nurture them, to believe in them, and to keep walking forward, no matter how long the road ahead might seem. Anaya closed her eyes, feeling the cool breeze on her face, and whispered a silent promise to herself. She had crossed the bridge, but the real journey was just beginning. In a small village nestled between rolling hills, there lived a little girl named Aisha. She was no older than 8, but the curiosity in her eyes made her seem wise beyond her years. Every day after school, Aisha would wander through the fields, her tiny feet crunching the leaves that had fallen from the trees, and gaze at the far horizon as if something awaited her there. The villagers often saw her with a hopeful smile, her head filled with dreams that were as big as the sky itself. Aisha had always loved to travel. She would often sit by the window and watch the trains pass, their whistle echoing through the valley. She would imagine herself on one of those trains, journeying to distant places, meeting new people, and discovering the world beyond the hills that surrounded her village. Her heart ached with the longing for adventure. She had heard so many stories about faraway lands, of mountains that touched the sky and rivers that glowed under the moonlight. But, being so young, the world seemed far too big and out of reach. One evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the world with golden hues, Aisha's grandmother called her into the house. "Come inside, dear, it's getting late," she said, her voice soft but firm. Aisha reluctantly left the window and entered the warm embrace of the cottage. Her grandmother was preparing dinner, the scent of freshly baked bread filling the air. "Aisha," her grandmother said as she placed a bowl of soup in front of her, "what do you dream of, my child?" Aisha thought for a moment, her mind wandering to the far-off lands she imagined. "I dream of traveling, Grandma. I want to see the world, meet people, and explore new places. I want to be free." Her grandmother smiled gently, wiping her hands on her apron. "The world is a beautiful place, my dear, but it can also be full of challenges. You must be prepared for both the beauty and the hardships it holds. A journey, whether short or long, is never easy." Aisha nodded, her thoughts still on the journey she longed to take. That night, as the stars sparkled like diamonds above, she lay in her bed, her mind racing with thoughts of the adventure she wished for. She closed her eyes, imagining herself walking down paths she had never walked, meeting people she had never met, and seeing places that were beyond her wildest dreams. But somewhere deep inside, she knew that her journey was not as far away as it seemed. The next morning, the village awoke to a surprise. A long, winding road had appeared overnight, cutting through the fields and leading beyond the hills. It was as though the earth had opened up a path just for Aisha. The villagers gathered around, amazed at this sudden change, but Aisha's heart skipped a beat. She knew deep down that this was the journey she had been waiting for. This was the adventure that had been calling her. With her heart pounding in her chest, Aisha told her grandmother, "I'm going to follow the road, Grandma. I want to see where it leads." Her grandmother, though sad, understood the fire in her granddaughter's eyes. "Go, my dear. But remember, The world is not just about the destination. The journey itself holds the most important lessons. Be brave, but be wise. Aisha hugged her grandmother tightly before setting off, her little feet carrying her along the path that stretched endlessly before her. She passed through fields of tall grass that swayed in the wind, climbed small hills, and crossed bridges over sparkling streams. As the day wore on, the world around her seemed to grow even more beautiful. She felt the freedom she had always longed for, and with each step, her excitement grew. Hours turned into days, and Aisha continued her journey, meeting people along the way. She encountered an old man who told her stories of far-off lands, a kind woman who shared her lunch with Aisha, and a young boy who offered to guide her through a forest. The world, she realized, was full of kind-hearted people who, though strangers, made her feel welcome. The adventure was everything she had imagined and more. But as the days passed, something inside Aisha began to change. The beauty of the world, the kindness of strangers, and the excitement of exploration were wonderful, but Aisha started to miss the simplicity of home, the warmth of her grandmother's embrace, the familiar sounds of the village, and the feeling of being grounded. The journey had been beautiful, but she began to wonder if there was more to it than just seeing the world. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with shades of orange and pink, Aisha arrived at the last bend of the road. She had walked far, further than she ever thought possible, but at that moment, she realized something crucial. The road had led her to the edge of the world. Beyond it was the unknown, but something inside her told her that she had come full circle. As Aisha stood at the edge, looking out over the vast expanse of land before her, she understood. The journey wasn't about the places she had visited or the people she had met. It was about what she had learned along the way, the strength to follow her heart, the courage to step into the unknown, and the wisdom to realize that sometimes the greatest journey is the one that leads us back to where we began. With a deep breath, Aisha turned around and began her journey home. The road behind her felt just as important as the road ahead. She had traveled far, but now she knew that the place where she truly belonged was not somewhere out there, but here, where she had started. When Aisha returned to her village, her grandmother was waiting for her, a knowing smile on her face. Aisha didn't need to say anything. Her eyes told the whole story. She had discovered the world, but she had also discovered herself. And so, Aisha's journey came to an end, not at the final destination, but at the realization that every journey, no matter how far, eventually brings us back to where we started, only now, we see it with new eyes. In a small town, nestled between tall mountains and flowing rivers, there lived a curious little boy named Arif. He was a quiet, shy child, always eager to learn new things. He loved school, not just for the lessons it offered, but for the adventure it provided each day. His school bag was more than just a carrier for books. To Arif, it was a magical space filled with potential, holding secrets and wonders he could only dream of. Every morning, before Arif left for school, his mother would pack his lunch, making sure to tuck in his favorite snacks: 2 samosas, a few sweet biscuits, and a small bottle of juice. But Arif always had something special in his school bag, a small, folded piece of paper that he had found one rainy afternoon while wandering the streets. It was old and tattered, but Arif believed it held a secret. Whenever he opened the bag, he would peek at the paper, thinking it was just a part of a bigger mystery he hadn't yet figured out. One chilly morning, as Arif was getting ready for school, he felt a strange sense of excitement. He didn't know why, but something about today felt different. His mother handed him his school bag, and he slung it over his shoulder as usual. But as soon as he took his first step out the door, he noticed something odd. The bag felt lighter than usual, almost as if it was floating. Arif paused, looking at his bag with wide eyes. He shrugged it off and continued walking, thinking maybe it was just his imagination. When Arif reached school, he quickly realized that his bag wasn't just lighter, it was also vibrating. He glanced around nervously, not wanting anyone to notice, and slipped into the classroom. He sat at his desk, his bag beside him, his heart racing with curiosity. He leaned over, trying to look inside without drawing attention. The vibrations grew stronger, and Arif hesitantly opened the bag. To his astonishment, inside the bag was not just his usual lunch and books, but something else, something glowing. It was a small, crystal-like object, shimmering in colors Arif had never seen before. He reached in carefully, his fingers brushing against the cool surface. The moment he touched it, a soft, magical hum filled the air, and the room around him seemed to shift slightly. The walls of the classroom grew taller, the windows brighter, and the sounds of the outside world faded into a peaceful silence. Arif blinked, unsure of what was happening, but before he could grasp the situation, the bell rang, snapping him back to reality. The glow faded, and everything returned to normal. Arif quickly closed his bag, his mind racing with questions. What was that object? Where did it come from? And why had it appeared in his school bag? He didn't have time to think about it further as his teacher entered the room and started the lesson. But throughout the day, Arif couldn't shake the feeling that something incredible was happening. The object was calling to him, as if it had a purpose he was meant to discover. The next day, Arif decided to investigate further. After school, he went straight home and rushed to his room. He pulled out the glowing crystal and examined it closely. It seemed to pulse gently in his hand, and as he held it, he noticed a small inscription on its surface. The letters were tiny and almost invisible, but with the help of his magnifying glass, Arif could read them. The holder of this gem will unlock the magic within. A chill ran down his spine. Could this be real? Was his school bag really hiding a magical secret? He decided to test it out. Arif took the crystal and placed it in his bag, then closed it up tightly. The next morning, when he opened the bag, the magic happened again. The classroom walls grew taller, the air more still, and Arif felt as though he were floating in a world of endless possibilities. The crystal had turned his ordinary school bag into a portal of sorts, allowing him to experience the world differently. For the next few days, Arif continued to experiment with the crystal. Each time he placed it in his bag, he discovered new wonders. One day, the bag transported him to a lush forest filled with talking animals. Another time, he was whisked away to a sparkling desert where the sand shimmered like gold. Each new experience filled him with awe and wonder. The magic was real, and it was all hidden within his school bag. But as time passed, Arif realized that the more he used the crystal, the more he became detached from reality. He found himself daydreaming during class, longing for the next magical adventure. His schoolwork began to suffer, and he started neglecting his friends and family. The magic, though captivating, was beginning to take a toll on his life. Arif was torn. He loved the adventures, but he knew he had to find a balance. He couldn't let the magic take over his life completely. One evening, after another extraordinary journey through the crystal, Arif sat alone in his room, contemplating what to do. The school bag was beside him, still glowing faintly. He realized that he had a choice to make. The magic was powerful, but it wasn't everything. He had dreams of becoming a scientist, exploring the real world, and discovering new things. But in order to do that, he had to focus on his studies, his friends, and his family. With a heavy heart, Arif made the decision to lock the crystal away. He placed it in a small wooden box and tucked it at the bottom of his school bag, out of sight. The magic was still there, but Arif knew he had to let go of it for now. He understood that true magic came from within, the magic of hard work, friendship, and love. As the days passed, Arif's life returned to normal. He continued to excel in school, made new friends, and spent time with his family. But every now and then, when he opened his school bag, he would catch a glimpse of the crystal, and for a brief moment, he would smile. He knew that the magic was always there, waiting for him when he was ready, but for now, he was content with the real world, where the greatest adventures were yet to come. On a quiet night, when the world was enveloped in darkness, there was a young girl named Aisha who often found herself lying on the rooftop, staring at the stars. The cool breeze gently whispered through the trees, and the night sky shimmered with millions of stars, each one glowing like a tiny diamond. Aisha had always been fascinated by the stars. To her, they were not just distant specks of light, but storytellers from another world, sharing tales that only the quiet of the night could understand. One particular evening, as Aisha lay there, lost in her thoughts, she noticed something unusual. The stars seemed to twinkle brighter than usual, almost as if they were beckoning her. She squinted her eyes, trying to focus on one star that seemed to shine more intensely. It was as though it was trying to tell her something. Suddenly, a soft voice echoed in the stillness, as if coming from the stars themselves. "Aisha," it whispered, "do you wish to hear our stories?" Aisha sat up quickly, her heart pounding. She looked around, but there was no one in sight. The voice had come from nowhere, yet it felt so real, so close. She looked up again at the star, which now appeared to flicker in a rhythmic pattern. Could it be? Could the stars actually speak? Yes, Aisha whispered back, unsure of what she was agreeing to but captivated by the thought of listening to tales from the stars. And then, as if in response to her answer, the stars began to twinkle even more brightly. The voice returned, this time clearer, as if it was right beside her. "We are the keepers of stories," the voice said. "And every night we tell tales of those who dream, those who wonder, and those who listen." Aisha felt a warm, comforting sensation as the words washed over her. She closed her eyes, allowing the voice to guide her into the world of stories the stars had to share. The first tale, the voice began, is of a young traveler who wandered through forests and deserts in search of something he could never name. He met many people, some kind, some cruel, but none could give him what he sought. It was only when he stopped looking, when he sat quietly in the heart of a meadow under the moonlight, that he realized what he had been seeking all along was peace. It was not a place or a thing, but a feeling. And in that moment, he found what he had been searching for all along. Aisha listened intently as the voice continued to tell the story. She could imagine the young traveler, his weary face softened by the realization that true peace was something that could only be found within. She could almost hear the rustling of the leaves in the meadow, the gentle hum of the wind carrying the secrets of the world. The second story, the voice said, is about a bird who never learned to fly. For years, it watched other birds soar through the sky, their wings spread wide, free to go wherever they pleased. The bird, however, was afraid. It believed that its wings were too small and too weak. But one day, in the middle of a storm, when the wind howled and the trees bent low, the bird was forced to fly. It was terrified at first, but then something miraculous happened. The bird found that its wings were stronger than it had ever known. It soared higher and higher, cutting through the storm with grace. And in that moment, It realized that sometimes we only learn how strong we truly are when we face our fears. Aisha could feel her heart racing as the voice wove this tale. The image of the bird struggling against the storm yet finding its strength touched her deeply. It reminded her of the fears she had faced in her own life, and how sometimes it was only by confronting them that she could discover her own power. The final story for tonight, the voice continued, is about a quiet river that flowed through a valley. The river had always felt lonely, as it never had anyone to speak to. It passed through the valley, silently watching the mountains, the trees, and the animals, but it never had anyone to share its thoughts with. One day, as the river was flowing through the valley, it came across a rock that was blocking its path. The river could have turned away, but instead, it began to gently flow around the rock. As it did, it noticed something beautiful, a small flower that had bloomed at the base of the rock, its petals soft and delicate. The river realized that sometimes obstacles in our lives are not meant to stop us, but to show us beauty in places we never thought to look. Aisha smiled softly, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. The stories of the stars had filled her heart with warmth and wisdom. She understood now that every challenge, every fear, every moment of uncertainty held within it the potential for growth, discovery, and beauty. The stars had shared their secrets, and she had listened. As the voice faded, Aisha lay back down, gazing up at the night sky. The stars no longer seemed distant and cold, but close, like old friends who had shared their most cherished memories. She knew that whenever she felt lost or uncertain, she could look up at the stars and remember the stories they had told her. And so, under the soft light of the stars, Aisha drifted off to sleep, knowing that the night was not just a time of darkness, but a time when the stars whispered their wisdom, and their stories guided her through the world of dreams. Once upon a time, in a quiet, lush forest where the trees whispered stories of old, there lived a magnificent elephant named Bolu. Bolu was unlike any other elephant in the forest, for he had a secret that only the moonlit nights could reveal. While all the other animals slept peacefully under the blanket of the stars, Bolu would close his eyes and drift into a world unlike any other, a world where he could dance, twirl, and leap in ways that no elephant had ever done before. During the day, Bolu was known for his calm and gentle nature. He would spend his time wandering the forest, helping the smaller animals, drinking from the river, and enjoying the warm sunlight that filtered through the leaves. His large ears would flap lazily, and his trunk would sway gracefully as he moved. No one ever suspected that this mighty creature had dreams of dancing, dreams that were far too delicate for his large body. But every night, as the moon climbed higher in the sky, Bolu's true nature would awaken. As soon as the last animal in the forest had fallen asleep, Bolu would close his eyes, and the magic would begin. In his dreams, he found himself in a vast open meadow, surrounded by shimmering lights and a soft, golden mist. The ground beneath his feet was soft, like a blanket of clouds, and the stars above twinkled with a melody that only he could hear. It was here, in this dream world, that Bolu could move like no other elephant could. His massive legs, usually slow and heavy, would become light and nimble, his large feet gliding across the soft ground with elegance. In this dream world, Bolu would dance. He would twirl in circles, his trunk swirling in the air, and his body moving gracefully with a rhythm that seemed to come from the very earth itself. His ears flapped like wings, catching the gentle breeze as he spun, creating a symphony of motion that filled the meadow. The stars above would shine brighter, and the moon would cast its soft glow over the dance floor, as if the very night was watching in awe of his graceful moves. Each night, Bolu's dreams became more vivid, more real. The meadow seemed to stretch on forever, and the music in his heart grew louder. He felt free, as if he could fly across the sky or leap over mountains. In his dreams, he was not just an elephant. He was a dancer, a performer who could fill the world with joy and beauty. But when the sun began to rise, the dreams would fade. Bolu would slowly open his eyes, finding himself back in the familiar forest, his massive body lying on the soft ground. The morning light would filter through the trees, and the animals would begin to stir, waking from their slumbers. Bolu would slowly rise, stretching his legs and shaking the sleep from his body. The world of dreams would slip away, leaving only the quiet forest behind. Despite the beauty of his dreams, Bolu never told anyone about them. He feared that the other animals would laugh at him or think him foolish. How could an elephant, known for his strength and size, ever be a dancer? He kept his secret to himself, content to dance only in his dreams. One evening, as the moon began to rise, Bolu felt a strange sense of longing. His heart ached with the desire to share his dreams, to show the world the grace and beauty he had discovered within himself. And so, he made a decision. That night, when the moon was high in the sky, Bolu would not only dream of dancing, he would dance for real. As the forest slept, Bolu began to move. His feet, heavy and large, began to lift off the ground, one step at a time. He felt the ground beneath him, soft as it was, and the rhythm of the earth calling him. With each step, his body swayed, his trunk lifted in a gentle arc, and his ears fluttered like wings. For the first time, Bolu danced in the real world, not just in his dreams. The stars seemed to twinkle with joy, and the moon shone brighter, casting its silver glow over the forest. Slowly, the animals began to stir. First, the monkeys woke and peered out from their branches, eyes wide with wonder at the sight before them. Then the deer, the birds, and the smaller creatures gathered around, watching in awe as the mighty elephant danced with grace and freedom. Bolu's movements were fluid, his large body swaying with the rhythm of the night, and for the first time, he felt truly alive. The animals, who had always known Bolu as the gentle giant, were amazed at the sight. They had never seen him like this before. His dream had become a reality, and in that moment, they understood something deep and profound, that sometimes the most beautiful dreams are the ones that we keep hidden inside, waiting for the right moment to come alive. As the night went on, Bolu danced under the moonlight, his dreams and reality blending into one beautiful moment. And when the dawn began to break, he stopped, his heart full of joy. He had danced for himself, for the forest, and for the world, and it felt like the most freeing thing he had ever done. From that night on, Bolu no longer kept his dreams to himself. Whenever the moon shone brightly, he would dance in the meadow, his dreams spilling into the world for all to see. The forest became his stage, and the stars above were his audience. And though his body was large and mighty, it was his heart that danced the most, free, wild, and filled with joy. And so, the elephant who once dreamed of dancing now shared his gift with the world, reminding everyone that no matter how big or small, we all have dreams that are worth sharing, and sometimes, all it takes is a little courage to let them come to life. In a small village nestled at the edge of a vast, open field, there lived a colorful kite named Patong. Patong was no ordinary kite. It was the brightest, most vibrant kite the village had ever seen. Its red and blue fabric shimmered in the sunlight, and its tail fluttered like a playful ribbon in the wind. But, despite its beauty, Patong always felt lonely. While the other kites would soar high in the sky during the day, Patong was left grounded most of the time, waiting for the right moment to fly. Patong's dream was simple, to soar high in the sky and dance with the clouds, but there was one thing that always kept it from flying: fear. It was afraid that it might get tangled in the trees, or worse, fall into the river and get lost forever. Patong would look up at the sky, longing for the freedom to float and drift, but it would always hesitate, unsure if it was strong enough to fly. One afternoon, as the sun began to set and the wind picked up, Patong was tied to the edge of a wooden pole. The breeze seemed to be stronger than usual, and Patong's heart raced with excitement and fear. As it tugged against the string, Patong could feel the sky calling it, urging it to break free. Just as it was about to give in to its fear, a gentle voice filled the air. "Why do you hesitate, dear Patong?" the voice asked. "I am the sky, and I have been waiting for you." Patong turned in surprise. There, in the vast blue expanse, was the sky itself, open, limitless, and inviting. "I am scared," Patong whispered, its fabric trembling. "I don't know if I am strong enough to fly. What if I fall? What if I get lost?" The sky chuckled softly, its voice like a gentle breeze. "You were made to fly, Patong. The wind and I are your friends. We will lift you, and together, we will dance among the clouds." Patong's heart swelled with hope. Could it really trust the sky? Could it let go of its fears and soar? With a deep breath, Patong allowed itself to be lifted by the wind. The string tightened as it rose into the air, and for a moment, it felt like a bird spreading its wings for the first time. The sky welcomed Patong with open arms, and the wind gently guided it higher and higher. The world below became a distant memory as Patong rose into the vastness of the sky. Up above, Patong felt free, free from its fears, free from the weight of the world below. The sky and the wind became its closest companions, supporting and encouraging it every step of the way. As Patong soared higher, it could hear the soft whispers of the wind, telling it stories of distant lands and adventures yet to be had. The sky was full of wonders. Patong danced with the clouds, floated through the soft rays of the setting sun, and twirled in the breeze. The higher it went, the more alive it felt. It was no longer just a kite. It was a part of the sky, a friend to the wind, a companion to the clouds. The world below was small and insignificant compared to the vast beauty of the sky above. As the day turned to night, Patong felt a sense of peace. The stars began to twinkle, and the moon cast a soft glow over the land. The wind began to slow, and Patong knew that it was time to return to the earth. Gently, the sky lowered Patong, bringing it back to the village. When Patong landed, it no longer felt lonely or afraid. It had found its place in the sky, and it knew that it could always return there whenever it wished. The sky, with its endless expanse and warm embrace, was now Patong's true home. And every time the wind picked up, Patong would rise again, ready to dance among the clouds, knowing that the sky would always be there to lift it higher. From that day forward, Patong and the sky became inseparable friends. They shared the same dreams, the same hopes, and the same freedom. And as long as Patong had the courage to let go of its fears, it knew it would always be able to soar in the sky, forever dancing with the wind and the clouds. Every night, when the world would sink into the stillness of sleep, there was one constant companion who remained awake: the moon. It wasn't just any moon, but one that had a secret, a mystery of its own. It would shine brightly in the sky, casting its soft glow on the earth below. But to the people of the village, it seemed as if it had its own life, its own personality. This moon didn't just illuminate the night. It spoke to the hearts of those who listened carefully. In a small village nestled between the hills, lived a young girl named Aisha. Every evening, after her long day of helping her mother with the household chores, she would sit by the window and gaze at the moon. Her room was quiet, filled only with the sound of the soft breeze brushing against the window and the faint chirp of crickets. But there was something magical about that moon. Every night, she would talk to it, sharing her dreams, her fears, her joys, and her sorrows, even though she knew no one would answer. Or so she thought. One particular night, as Aisha sat by the window, the moon seemed brighter than ever before. It wasn't just casting its usual soft glow. It was as if it was alive, pulsating with energy, responding to her presence. She couldn't help but feel drawn to it, as if the moon were beckoning her to speak. Hesitant at first, she whispered into the night, "I don't know what to do, dear moon. My heart feels so heavy. I wish I could do something for my family, but I feel so small. I don't think I'm enough." To her surprise, the moon's light grew even brighter, and for a brief moment, it seemed to shine directly into her heart, warming her from the inside. A gentle voice, soft like the wind, whispered back, "Aisha, why do you doubt yourself? You're not small, my child. Your heart is filled with endless love and strength. It is the love you carry that gives you power. You are enough." Aisha's eyes widened in disbelief. Was she imagining things? Was it really the moon speaking to her? But the warmth that spread through her was undeniable, and somehow, deep down, she felt a strange comfort, as if the moon had always been watching over her. The next night, Aisha returned to her window, her heart still unsure, but this time with more hope. She spoke again to the moon, her voice a little stronger. "Moon, I still don't know how to help my family. Things are hard and sometimes I feel so lost. How can I be the strength they need?" The moon, now brighter and more luminous than ever, responded again, its voice a soft melody in the cool night air. "Aisha, strength does not always look like what you think. It is not about grand actions or big gestures. It is about being there for the ones you love, about sharing a smile, a word, a touch. Your presence is strength. Your love is strength." Aisha smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. She hadn't realized that she was already doing so much for her family. She had been the one who had stayed up late to help her younger brother with his schoolwork. She had been the one who comforted her mother when things felt overwhelming. The moon had reminded her of something she had forgotten, that strength doesn't always come from grand victories but from the simple, everyday acts of love and kindness. As the days passed, Aisha's connection with the moon grew deeper. Every night, she would sit by the window, and the moon would talk to her, comforting her, guiding her, and reminding her of her worth. The moon would listen patiently as she poured out her heart, and it would speak words that soothed her soul. Aisha began to feel a sense of peace that she had never known before. The moon had become her confidant, her friend, the one who always understood her. One night, after a particularly difficult day, Aisha sat by the window, feeling defeated. Her family was struggling, and she didn't know how much longer they could hold on. She whispered into the night, "I don't know if I can keep going. I don't know how much more I can take." The moon, now a silver crescent in the dark sky, whispered back, its voice gentle and full of love, "Aisha, even the darkest night will eventually give way to dawn. You are never alone. I will always be here, watching over you, guiding you. When you feel lost, look up at me, and know that you have the strength within you to keep going." The warmth of the moon's light filled her heart, and for the first time in a long while, Aisha felt a spark of hope. The moon had shown her that even in her moments of doubt and despair, there was always a source of light, a reminder of her own inner strength. From that night forward, Aisha no longer doubted herself. She knew that she was never truly alone. The moon, with its soft glow, would always be there to listen to her heart, to offer her guidance, and to remind her of the love and strength that lived within her. And as she continued to care for her family, she realized that the moon was right. Strength wasn't just about fixing everything, it was about being there, showing up, and never giving up, no matter how hard things became. As the years went by, Aisha would often find herself gazing at the moon, knowing that no matter where life took her, she would always have a friend in the sky, someone who would listen and offer her the wisdom to keep going. The moon, with its quiet, comforting presence, had taught her one of life's most important lessons, that the heart, when filled with love, is never truly alone. It was a quiet evening in the village, where the setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. The air was warm, filled with the scent of blooming flowers, and the gentle hum of nature's whispers filled the air. At the far end of the village, near an old, quiet park, stood a swing, an old wooden swing tied to a large tree, its ropes weathered with time, but still strong enough to carry anyone who dared to sit on it. For as long as she could remember, little Zainab had always found herself drawn to this swing. Her feet would run to it every day after school, her heart full of excitement as she rushed to the playground. The swing had been there for as long as she could remember, and it had always been her escape, her little haven in the busy world around her. There was something magical about it, the way it moved with the wind, how it seemed to carry her into the air, where she could leave her worries behind and simply feel free. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Zainab returned to the swing as she had done countless times before. She was feeling particularly heavy that day, her mind weighed down with thoughts of the troubles that filled her life. Her parents were busy, caught up in their own world of responsibilities. Her older brother, once her constant companion, had become distant, absorbed in his studies and his growing responsibilities. It seemed that every time Zainab looked around, something or someone was slipping away from her. The world around her was changing so fast, and she was struggling to keep up. Sitting on the swing, she pushed herself gently, allowing the motion to take over. Back and forth, she soared higher and higher, her feet brushing against the cool evening air. As the swing creaked with every sway, it felt as if it was carrying her not just through the space around her, but through time itself. The wind, like an invisible hand, brushed through her hair, carrying with it whispers from the past, whispers from memories long gone. With every swing, Zainab found herself traveling back in time. She could hear the laughter of children who had played here long before her. She could see the old park as it once was, bustling with people, filled with life. The swing, in its gentle motion, seemed to carry the echoes of all those who had sat on it, all the lives that had passed through this small, humble place. She felt as if she was not just sitting on the swing, but was becoming a part of the story of this park, a story that had spanned generations. Her eyes closed as she allowed the swing to carry her further back. She could see her mother, young and vibrant, pushing her on this very swing. She could see her father, standing by the tree, laughing as he watched her play. Her heart swelled with nostalgia as she remembered the simpler times when the world felt a little bit slower, a little bit kinder. Back then, it seemed like everything was just right, and the swing had been a constant, a comforting reminder that time, while it moved forward, would always hold pieces of the past. The swing slowed, and Zainab's feet touched the ground once more. She opened her eyes, only to find herself no longer in the present moment. It was as if time itself had paused, leaving her suspended between then and now. She looked around and saw, not the empty park, but a vibrant scene unfolding before her eyes. There, under the same tree, was a little girl, her younger self, laughing as her mother pushed her on the swing. Zainab's heart skipped a beat as she watched the young version of herself soar through the air, her eyes wide with joy. It was a memory, a moment frozen in time, and yet it felt so real, so vivid. Zainab smiled, a soft tear rolling down her cheek as she watched her past self. The scene shifted again. She saw her parents, older now, sitting on a bench nearby, talking softly to each other. Their faces were filled with worry, but there was also a glimmer of hope in their eyes. Zainab could see the weight of life on their shoulders, the responsibilities they had taken on as her family grew. They weren't the same carefree parents she remembered from her childhood, but they were still her parents, and they still loved her. Time moved on as it always does. The swing, which had once been a symbol of joy and freedom, now became a place of reflection, a bridge between the past and the present. Zainab realized that, like the swing, life itself was full of highs and lows, of moments that lifted us up and others that brought us back down. And yet, through it all, there was a certain beauty in the motion, the way time moved us forward, even when we didn't feel ready. Zainab stood up from the swing, her heart lighter than before. The breeze had picked up, swirling around her as if the very air itself was breathing a sigh of relief. She looked up at the sky, now dotted with stars, and whispered, "Thank you." As she walked away from the swing, Zainab knew that she couldn't hold on to the past forever. Things would continue to change, as they always do. But she had learned something valuable that night. The swing had shown her that while time would move on, the memories, the love, and the lessons from the past would always be with her, nestled deep within her heart. Time, after all, was not something to fear, but something to embrace, for it carried the stories of who we were and who we would become. And so, as Zainab made her way back home, she carried with her the understanding that every moment, every experience, was part of the grand story of life. The swing, with its creaking ropes and gentle sway, had reminded her of the beauty of time, and how, in the end, all of us are part of the same eternal journey.